My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It is essential that our team learns to work with our new recruit, not against him.
I'm a geek, walking down the street.
Check the computer.
The mainframe computer. I access the mainframe.
At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall. Time to find out.
Welcome to Basically a Geek Show. Here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 37 of Basically a Geek Show. And before we get started, it's kind of hard to avoid this. Just wanted to say my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by the shootings today in Ottawa. I'm still not I'm still a bit in shock that something like of that magnitude happened in the seat of government for my country. So thoughts and prayers go out on my end to everyone who's affected by that. So.
And same here, of course, definitely. And I'm in shock too. It's like, I guess it's impossible to say this without a little bit of probably unwarranted levity. But Canada is like the last fucking place on Earth you really think of something like that happening, you know? Mm-hmm. Fucking crazy. Yeah. I mean, we here in the U.S., we piss off everybody. Y'all don't do shit to no one. I mean...
Oh, you have people trying to make all kinds of connections. We are recording this 5:27 p.m. the 22nd of October, so it has been about only 7 hours since the attacks took place. As of this recording, unless something happens while we're recording, the motivations of the shooter are not really known, so we're not going to speculate on anything like that. But yeah, this is something that I did not expect to ever really see happen. I guess this is how Americans felt in 9/11. Like, this shit just doesn't happen here.
Yeah. America had terrorist attacks. We had, the first Trade Center bombing in 91 or 92, I forget which, and you had McVeigh in 94. Mm-hmm. So, I guess on a certain level, we do expect it to happen here in America. We did not expect something of that scale to happen.
And I'm not trying to equate
the
scale of what happened today to 9/11. I'm just saying, just in terms of this
psychological impact.
Yes, this is although the Sergeant of Arms of Parliament Hill is apparently a badass.
Yeah, let's talk about that poor bastard for a minute. You said he was basically it's a ceremonial role. He's got a gun, which is there mostly for show. Usually, he is technically the head of security at Parliament, but from what I gather, it is mostly a ceremonial role. When the Governor General, or on rare occasions the Queen, enters the Canadian House of Commons, he's the one who announces. He's the one who opens sessions. He's the one leading the procession at sessions that open Parliament with the mace, the symbolic mace. He is a former RCMP officer, so it's not like he didn't have any combat experience, but he is up there in age, and this was mostly, from what I gather, a ceremonial position. Right, exactly. Can you imagine this poor bastard? He's like, yeah, man, this new job is sweet. This is fucking easy mode. Just going to coast on to pension. Oh, my God!
Kevin Vickers is the guy's name, and we have members of Parliament, because today in Parliament Hill, the shootings the gunman got into Parliament, and it's particularly significant because today all the parties in Parliament were caucusing. that is basically, it's not a session of Parliament, but what happens is all of all the members of Parliament meet with all the members of their own party, and they discuss things relevant to upcoming sessions of Parliament. So you had members from the three major parties, the Conservatives, the Liberals, and the NDP, all gathered in relatively close quarters. And you've got MPs from all of the parties basically going on Twitter calling this guy a hero.
Yeah, that's... Oh, hey, at least that is one kind of effect that terrorist attacks do have. For like 72 hours afterwards, everyone agrees on something.
Yeah.
And then it's back to, bickering as usual. But for that little brief period of time, everyone's like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, there is a sense of national unity before it devolves back into, no, you!
Yeah, exactly.
Over, like, crap that's probably pretty trivial in the grand scheme of things. Mr. Harper, your 2-cent titanium tax doesn't go too far enough.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something I just kind of felt we had to address, given that, we're recording today and this popped up, and it's something you just can't really ignore, I guess. But we're going to jump into happier things, relatively speaking. I mean, some of the stuff we talk about, it's a sliding scale, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But Star Wars Episode VII, a few weeks back, we talked about the Chrome Stormtrooper art that was sort of leaked. We've got more concept art. I'm not sure if this was leaked or officially released. But we do get a series. It's a series of slides, a series of images, and I am going to be completely honest. A lot of this has got me psyched for a movie that, truth be told, I was a bit tentative about. But seeing some of this art has sort of made me think, you know what, this looks kind of cool.
My thoughts on the movie are still pretty much that of ambivalence. I mean, again, this is just concept art. A lot of it's probably things that may not even make it into the movie. And even if it does, I mean, there's nothing here that gives you any plot idea. Really.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, yeah, it does appear from a lot of these still shots that the Empire is still kind of a thing.
Kind of.
Which kind of goes to, and again, this is one of those situations where I don't remember whether this is something we discussed in private or discussed on the show. Mm-hmm. But, this whole thing of, well, just because the Emperor is dead doesn't necessarily mean the Empire itself is just going to up and fold in on itself overnight.
Well, and again, I understand that the extended universe has basically become null and void. Like, just completely tons of stories and games and novels just completely wiped aside. But in that, they explored that concept that the Empire, at least factions of it, would remain in control in certain parts of the galaxy. And from what I see in this art, it seems like there are two sort of sides to this. You see... In the fifth one in the slide, it looks like people are salvaging an AT-AT, an AT-AT walker.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a really powerful image because it's almost kind of like when Rome fell and you had people pillaging the Colosseum and other great Roman monuments and just like pillaging it for basic supplies after the Empire fell. And here you see, the Empire fell. Here's an iconic piece of imperial iconography from Star Wars, and it's being used as sort of a salvage shop. I think that's a really cool visual, and I'm interested to see how they touch on that idea.
Well, they probably just heard that the Empire has had all the dope-ass gadgets in their machines. Man, I can get that new iPod. Man, I bet there's all kinds of shit in here, man. Mm-hmm. Fucking ripping out probably the tea maker, all that other shit.
Well, we've got the one I guess that you're referencing to that says that the Empire is very much still around in some form. It is a shot of what looks like to be a hangar, and there is a TIE fighter in this hangar, and it's surrounded by stormtroopers.
Yeah, and then there's one later on. I think it's it's the last one that shows a crashed TIE fighter. Mm-hmm. And it's not like a derelict wreck. It's still like on fire and shit. Mm. So it's a recent takedown, looks like. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of get that impression there that the Empire is still kind of there, at least in some degree.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're going to go with this, but it seems to be that the Empire has existed, at least in some form, somewhere, possibly continuing to govern part of the galaxy. It's probably much diminished from where it was, obviously, at its height, but it looks like it is still a thing that exists. There's another one that's rather interesting. It looks like it's the 9th one in the slideshow. Can't really make out any characters, but it's someone entering this dark room, and there seems to be some hooded, cloaked figure sitting on a throne.
Let me see here.
And
okay, yeah, I see what you're talking about.
And in Star Wars, I see a cloaked, hooded guy on a throne. I think Palpatine, but he's dead.
What I'm thinking is probably, I mean, if they're going to use any kind of actual realistic political mechanism in this for the Empire, I would imagine that the Empire is broken up into several different factions that are probably, to a large degree, fighting amongst themselves for succession and title of Emperor. Mm-hmm. Because you had the Emperor Wax, you had the next logical choice to be Emperor, Vader. He bit the big one too. So, of course, that's going to be the chance for every Tom, Dick, and Harry with a few bars on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. Like, now is my time!
Well, yeah. I mean, there would probably be infighting amongst what remained of the Imperial command structure. But the other one that's interesting is this. We got enough. Who knows if it's the same figure? But there's another piece of concept art of another cloaked figure holding a Vader mask.
Yeah,
Vader helmet. And you said it might be Luke. My initial thought was that's Anakin. That is Anakin, because we know they did say that Vader is coming back, which I thought was a stupid idea because I thought that his story concluded perfectly at the end of Return of the Jedi. But with the knowledge that they are bringing the character back, I see that as sort of maybe Anakin outside of the Darth Vader armor, looking at the Vader mask.
Oh, true. That could be the case. I was just going by, at the time I'd actually kind of forgotten that they were bringing Vader back because that's just how batshit insane that idea is. Not even that his story concluded either good or bad. It just fucking concluded he was fucking dead.
Yeah, they burned his body.
Yeah, and ethereal person looking down and smiling, giving the Buddy Christ thumbs up to Luke at the end of the fucking movie.
And then they replaced him with Hayden Christensen.
We're not going to rant about that again. But, I mean, so, that's kind of a big... That's a big inconsistency. That's a big fuck you to even not being a fan, really, of the first trilogy. The original trilogy, whatever you want to call it, episodes, 4 through 6.
I call it real Star Wars.
Real Star Wars, fair enough. Even not really considering myself to be a big fan of that on its own, even though, I'm a fan of the genre, so I do like it to a degree. It's just never been quite my thing. Mm-hmm. But even that taken into account, this is a huge slap in the face to what are 3 solid movies for the most part. You had, the main antagonist, Vader, dies very, very decisively, fucking kicks the bucket. Mm. He is no more. He is bereft of life. He has ceased to be. Surprise, motherfuckers!
Well, I know why he's bringing it back. It's because Vader is probably the most iconic character in Star Wars, and if you can bring Vader back and slap him on a movie poster, that's really going to get people into it.
Yeah, definitely. And now that you're mentioning it, yeah, I can kind of see it being Vader.
My only concern now, though, is that I was under the impression that Anakin couldn't survive outside the Darth Vader mask. I mean, that was the whole point when, at the end of Jedi, when Luke's trying to save him, and Vader's like, take my mask off, and Luke's like, but you'll die.
Which, how did Luke know that?
I guess it... No, because there's a scene, like, it's not said outright, but there is a scene where he's conversing with Obi-Wan's Force spirit.
Yeah.
His ghost, and Obi-Wan kind of tells him he's more machine than man. And I guess it's sort of implied that, you know, he's kind of become so much of a machine that he can't survive without the suit. But then again, this still could be Vader. Like, if they're doing the whole Vader's reborn thing, then maybe he was regenerated enough to the point that he doesn't need the suit anymore, necessarily.
Maybe just better cybernetics, maybe?
But, like...
Maybe he got an upgrade? I don't know.
But I guess that could very well be Luke, but I guess, like, the whole thing is... why I don't think it's Luke is because it seems kind of dark for Luke.
Well, Luke can have some emo moments, too. I mean, you don't know. I'm just going by... I mean, you can't really tell... I mean, okay, it's a figure in a mask with a cybernetic hand, and it's a right hand.
Well, yeah, Luke did lose his hand, too. They both lost their hands.
Right. You really can't tell from the left hand. If it was the left hand, you'd know it was Vader, because Luke only had the right hand replaced.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, so it's got to. Well, I mean, we're saying it's got to be one of the two.
I can't see who else it could be. It's either Anakin or Luke. I can't. That image doesn't have any sort of emotion behind it if it's anyone besides those two.
True, but I mean we're assuming in that there is some level of competency here, and we don't know for sure. There's
got to be more levels of competency behind this than there was behind the prequel trilogy.
Well, again, that's a sliding scale that doesn't mean much either. I mean. Well, Kindergarten Cop, in many ways, was more competently made than...
Yeah. What else do we have here? Slide 16 shows a female character. I'm going out on a limb and saying that's the daughter of Han and Leia.
Well, that seems like a fairly safe assessment.
I don't know. Just figured that again. Like, you really can't use the extended universe as any sort of guide here. But if that is a place where they were perhaps harvesting story ideas from, Han and Leia do have a daughter, Hope Solo, and no, not Hope Solo. That's the name of a soccer player.
It would be awesome if her name was Cup Solo. Hi-yo.
Yeah, what's their daughter's name?
I don't know.
Jaina.
Proudmoore?
No, different Jaina.
Oh.
Yeah, no. So she, so again, if they're using that story idea and kind of adapting it into their own story, I could see this being her. The art style seems very Han Solo-ish, just like, I don't know, the clothes that she's wearing. I'd expect that's something that I'd expect the daughter of Han Solo to look like. You know, if Luke ever had kids, they'd probably be in the Jedi robes. But just kind of going through this art, I don't know. I like it. I like the general art style of it. One of my big problems with the prequel trilogy, and this isn't going into the huge problems that existed on the storytelling level, but on the art direction of the original trilogy, everything just seems so clean and polished. There was an over-reliance on CGI, and that added to it. But just the general art design just seemed really polished and really clean. And that was sort of justified on that, this is before the Empire. And so, like, the Empire being evil and gritty, I guess. So this is supposed to talk about, like, the majesty of the Old Republic. So, of course, it was clean and smooth. But the problem is that if you watch them all in order from 1 to 6, you definitely feel that aesthetic gap between 3 and 4. And while I could perhaps understand the decision to make everything look so clean and smooth and polished in the prequels, the result was that movies that were supposed to take place in the same universe had radically different art directions. And everything here looks very gritty. And to me, that ties in with the original trilogy much better. And to me, it looks more Star Wars than the other ones did. Like, the prequels looked too clean.
Right, I get you.
And this looks more dirty, more gritty, more kind of in line with the aesthetic that I really got with the original trilogy. So I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, I can certainly see what you're talking about. There was an artistic disconnect between, the new trilogy and the old. And like you're saying, I can see where they would want it to feel different because the Empire hadn't taken over and everything like that. Which in that sense, it is very effective because, as soon as the Empire takes over, boom, next movie, everything has this very kind of dark dystopian feel to it. It
does, but at the same time, it didn't seem like anyone had any concept of technological innovation because it's not just that the art style was changed, but the way that they designed everything in the prequel trilogies, it seems like there's a massive technological recession. And that didn't make any sense because, the Empire is dystopian, it's evil. But if there's one thing evil military dictatorships know, it's how to turn out effective military hardware. So it didn't...
Really? They do?
You'd think so, yeah.
Well, North Korea.
Well, North Korea is kind of its own thing. There are problems.
And the Soviets were behind the United States in military technology.
Yeah, but but within the context of Russian history, they were a marked improvement over the Russian Empire.
Well, true.
And that's what we're talking about. Like, this isn't like in comparison to anything. This is just the galaxy's own internal technological development seemed to take a step back with the Empire, and that's just a result of the art direction they took with the original trilogy. Everything was smooth, everything looked more advanced, and that didn't make sense. And so now everything here looks properly gritty, and I like that. Like the whole grimdark thing is something that people have ragged on with Hollywood, but I don't think this is grimdark. I think this is just sort of getting back to the aesthetic that people associate with Star Wars. And you see, and this isn't just me saying this. When I've got all the Star Trek movies on DVD, and as you know from our time playing Star Trek Online, I'm a big fan of the Excelsior starship design in Star Wars. Star Trek.
Yeah.
Well, I'm watching Star Trek 3, which is the one where the Excelsior debuts. And I'm like, you know what? I really like the Excelsior design. I'm going to check out the special features and see if they talk about designing, the thought process that went behind that. So I watched the special features, and ILM did the art direction for Star Trek 3. And they're talking about the Excelsior, and they were talking about sort of the general aesthetic of the movie. And of course, ILM is Lucas's company, and they do the special effects for Star Wars. Right. And they were like, well, Episode 3 came out around the same time we were doing some of the Star Wars stuff, but we wanted each movie to have its sort of own aesthetic. Star Trek is very smooth. Star Trek is very smooth, very streamlined, very clean, and we kind of view Star Wars as having more of a gritty aesthetic. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. Like, you look at the Millennium Falcon, or even a Star Destroyer next to the Enterprise, and the art design is very different. Star Wars is very gritty. The ships have a lot of raised panels, raised ridges, exposed wiring and command structures, whereas Star Trek is very streamlined and smooth and cleaner. And so, even had ILM saying Star Wars is kind of, we view Star Wars as having a very gritty look to it. And so, this seems to be getting back to that. So, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And also, Mark Hamill is growing out a beard that may or may not be contractually obligated. So,
yeah. He did an interview. I think it was with the BBC, where he mentioned something about that. Basically, the older actors from the original trilogy, they are there to kind of just provide that tie-in to the new cast. They're not really considering themselves to be the stars of the movie. Though, for a fact they're going to be the ones on the fucking posters. But they're, I think you may end up seeing some Bryan Cranston and Godzilla type shit where someone ends up fucking dying 20 minutes in or some shit.
I guarantee that's going to be Harrison Ford, because I don't think he wants to do this shit much longer.
Well, evidently he got wounded on set.
He did. Apparently stepping into the Millennium Falcon set.
Oh, dear God.
He's an old man now. It's sad. Han Solo is old now. It's sad.
And yeah, Mark Hamill basically said that their duty there, I said duty, was to, help hand things off to the new cast and grow contractually obligated beards. So
yeah, Mark Hamill's got a really wicked beard going. My first thought was that he looked like the Unabomber. You said he looks like a 70s folk musician.
Yes. Yeah, my first thought was like, I don't know, Kenny Loggins or Gordon Lightfoot or something.
Oh, God, no. Like, Luke... it'll be interesting to see Luke, because Luke was one of my favorite characters in fiction, actually, as a kid. So it'll be interesting to see Luke as, like, old man Skywalker, I guess. But, that is kind of encouraging that, that Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford are just sort of there to provide a sense of continuity and push the new cast off. I think that's a smart move. And, we saw how effective it was in Star Trek, the first movie at least, when they had old Spock there to sort of ground everything. So as long as they don't let the old-timers dominate, the story going forward, I don't see this as a bad thing. And I'm looking forward to it. Like, a lot of this art really made me interested in seeing this movie. So, what can I say? If it was released, good on Disney, because I was feeling a bit tentative about it up until then.
I'm pretty sure it was leaked. I mean, that's what all the things I've read have said that was leaked. So, but it could be a deliberate leak. You never know how shit like that goes. Mm-hmm. My opinions on the movie really haven't changed. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, it's going to be what it's going to be. I still think them bringing Vader back is just butt-fucked retarded.
It is.
And, it's going to be what it's going to be. I honestly kind of find myself not really caring one way or the other if it's good or bad. If it's good, it'll be, enjoyable to watch. If it's bad and it's a fucking cinematic abomination, then I'm really not going to care all that much and just kind of sort of be like, well, what do you expect these days?
Indeed.
Either way, I think we can both agree that it should be at least better than the prequels.
Oh, well, that's a very low fucking bar.
Well, yeah, but I think we're both safe in saying that it should be better than that. I mean, just having the original cast there, even temporarily, will automatically secure it that much at least, should be.
I mean, that's not even a bar they have to jump over. You can just step over that.
Well, yeah.
And just, you have any fucking... You have Jar Jar Binks anywhere near it? No.
Though I did like Episode 2. I did like that one.
Oh, that's like the worst one.
Christopher Lee, what can I say?
Yeah, and they had CGI Christopher Lee doing backflips and shit with a lightsaber.
We think it was CGI. I mean, this is Christopher Lee, motherfucker. It could have been. He's crazy.
Yeah, they made him Space Dracula.
Well, hell yeah, of course. What else are you going to do with him? And you know what? That was enough.
Count Dooku. Oh, my God. So, now let's move on to another sequel. And this is part of a trend that's really pissing me off in Hollywood. And that is movies based on a single book being stretched into multiple parts. The Hobbit's probably the worst offender, being, that's one book split into 3 movies when it's actually
not even that long of a book.
No, it's a children's book. Lord of the Rings, it was a series written for adults, but the Hobbit, which was written before Lord of the Rings, was intended for children. And it is written at a children's level for children. It's not very long. It's actually shorter than the individual Lord of the Rings books, and each of those books got 1 movie, and the Hobbit's getting 3. And it shows because the movies are overly long and full of bullcrap that they use to justify the running time, even if it is kind of nice to see Sylvester McCoy get work again. But that's not the only one. Harry Potter, I think, was the one who kicked it off when they split the last book into 2 movies. Twilight did it because that movie just couldn't die. That series just couldn't die properly. And someone else did it recently. Oh yeah, this movie. This series. The Hunger Games series.
Yeah.
It's a 3-book series, and movie 3 is being stretched into 2 movies. And unlike Harry Potter, unlike The Hobbit, I haven't read the book, so I can't tell anyone. I can't tell you if it's a good idea or not. I can't tell you if there's a natural ending point midway through that they could realistically cut things off at. But I'm just saying it's a trend I'm not happy about, and I'm kind of pissed to see it continuing. But that aside, the trailer for Mockingjay Part 1 was released, and what did you think?
Pretty cool. I mean, there's not much you can really tell about a movie from the trailer, especially these days where they're so, I don't know, engineered to I guess in some cases kind of almost misportray what the movie is in so many instances. So, and yeah, that whole Iron Man 3 and experiences like that have really got me paying, besides just curiosity to see a few shots from the movie itself. That's literally what I treat a trailer as.
I can never. Iron Man 3 is like that one relationship that just hurt me deeply, and now I can never love again. I can never trust a trailer again.
Yeah, and, there were movies that...
No, I can't trust you. You'll hurt me.
Exactly. I mean, there have been times where there's footage in trailers that's not even in the actual movie. Mm-hmm. So even that's not a for sure thing, but I treat it mostly as a chance to hopefully see some footage from the actual movie itself and little to nothing else.
Well, we can glean something from it. We see... Katniss is leading some sort of rebellion against the Capitol. And
presumably they are holding nude pictures of her for ransom.
God. And we see PETA, whatever his name is.
Pedo?
Is it PETA? Is that his name? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, like the fucking bread.
Yeah. Oh, and he's a fucking baker. That was intentional.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
So PETA, he actually goes on. He's like, the rebellion should lay down their weapons. So it seems like they're going to do a thing where PETA and Katniss are on opposite ends of the conflict. And you know what? I applaud PETA for having... for being brave enough to stand by President Snow 4 more years.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I seen this thing there's a picture on the internet the other day, and it said Harry Potter fans are like, I want to go to Hogwarts, and Percy Jackson fans are like, I want to go to Camp Half-Blood. Narnia fans are like, I want to go to Narnia.
Narnia, by the way, is the least lame option out of all those 3.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Hunger Games fans are like, nope, I'm good.
What, you don't want to go to the dystopian world where everyone's either starving or unbelievably decadent?
Oh, God. But yeah, this trend of, taking... And again, Hunger Games, while not a book necessarily for children, is a book for young adults. It's not the beefiest novel in the world.
It's not Moby Dick or War and Peace.
Right. Yeah, it comes in at about 300 pages, I think, ish, give or take, a few. There is a copy in this house, but I can't be arsed to go find it. So, I mean, do we need 2 movies off of that? I mean, I understand that sometimes there's a lot of things in books that they want to include in the movie, but they can't because of runtime concerns. And maybe this is being used to address that and to kind of counter that. I kind of don't think so, though. Or if it is, it might be like a side benefit that happens in spite of itself. But the real reason is simply they want to get 2 opening weekends out of this.
Exactly. Why get 1 blockbuster and get 2? And the thing about all of this, all right, is that one, it's just so transparent, and 2, I don't mean to disparage the Hunger Games series. From everything I can tell of all of the books, of all of the speculative fiction books that have taken the young adult market by storm, this is by far one of the most well-written ones. But, so I don't mean to disparage it, but is it really going to have enough to justify 2 movies? Like, is it really going to be able to justify that, or is it going to be so artificially truncated and so artificially, puffed up in certain parts that it just that you just roll your eyes, where all of a sudden the plot stops and we have just nonsense happen for 20 minutes because this is where they had to pad out the runtime so they could split it into 2 movies.
I don't think it's going to be as bad as The Hobbit was for that.
Now, The Hobbit is shameless because they just took everything else Tolkien ever wrote about the backstory to Middle Earth and was like, we need to kill 20 minutes here to stretch this thing up into 3 movies. Well, just random bullshit from this book, from the Silmarillion. So it's like, oh god. And there isn't a big book of reference for the Hunger Games that they can draw from on that, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. But just from a moviegoer's perspective, the second movie really didn't do much for me because it started off interesting, exploring the political fallout from the first movie, but then it just turned into a repeat of the first movie.
Yeah.
And that kind of bugged me, but then it kind of ended on a strong note by this is the revolution. And I'm like, oh, revolution, okay, we're going to get this thing started again. And then what happened? Well, this movie is just going to tease the revolution more. We're not going to see anything. We're not going to see anything final. Nothing's going to conclude. Because it can't conclude. We have one more 2-hour movie that we can conclude things with. So it's I want to see more of the politics, and I guess we will. The last movie ended with the destruction of the Hunger Games dome. So obviously they can't
Dome.
The Hunger Dome. So, by the way, Hunger Games has a subway tie-in. So what the fuck's that about? But so we're not going to just rehash the Hunger Games plot from the first 2 movies, obviously, and so hopefully we'll get more of that politics. It's I want to see this revolution. I want to get into the meat of this. I want to see this concept fully explored, and we can't because we got to stretch it into 2 movies. Although I want to repeat, this bears repeating every time we talk about Hunger Games. One of my favorite books is 1984, and it's nice to see the dystopian genre, get some fans among young adults these days. As depressing as it is, again, if this leads to an interest in the genre and leads to more kids actively reading 1984, which is a great book, then all the better. So,
yeah, I would not be objected to them making the new movie following the same template as the first 2 on the conditions that they have Woody Harrelson's character talking like Burgess Meredith from the Rocky series. You're too old, Katniss, but we're going to get you in shape. You're going to eat lightning and crap thunder.
So just do now Katniss has to fight all of the younger kids who have come up in the Hunger Games.
Yes. You just turn it into just a full.
So it becomes Rocky
analogy.
3. It becomes Rocky 3 now, where someone comes in as Clubber Lang.
Exactly. Yes.
You can't beat him, Katniss.
Yeah. Exactly. He'll kill you.
He's a killer. And then we have the scene where Jennifer Lawrence is chasing around like a chicken.
Yes.
Catch the chicken.
Catch my chicken. What?
No.
Oh Lord. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, I would be fully on board at that point, because that's almost like the second movie, Catching Fire, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah, that was Catching Fire.
It almost felt kind of like a Rocky 2 in that respect. You had the first half, which covered what happened after the last match, and then okay, back in the ring with you, kid. So.
Oh, that was kind of a bitch move. On the Capitol's part in that second movie. This is the whole point of the Hunger Games: is if you survive, then you basically get to live a life of luxury.
That's supposed to be the idea.
And then they're like, "Doing it again, bitches!"
Yeah.
And it was basically
Dad's puppet.
It was basically Hunger Games All-Stars too. It was everyone who was in it was someone who had won a past one.
Yeah.
And it's Hunger Games All-Stars.
Super Hunger Games Turbo Super Expanded Edition DX.
So let us move on to Marvel Civil War. We talked a lot about this last week in the Robert Downey Jr. Newsathon. But a lot of that got sort of drowned out in the Robert Downey Jr. news and sort of the implications for what that could mean for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I just want to talk about Marvel Civil War for a bit because, as I said last week, it's one of the series that got me interested in comic books. Well, not get me interested in comic books, but kind of kept me around. I was kind of drifting away from comic books. Marvel Civil War kind of got me back into it. And so I'm excited about this. And so what is Marvel Civil War? What is the crux of it? Basically, you have a team of young superheroes who engage a supervillain outside of a school in Stamford, Connecticut, and one of the superheroes cannot control his powers and blows up the school. As a result, the Superhero Registration Act is passed by the U.S. government. Basically, what it says is that superheroes don't have to publicly unmask, but they just have to register their identity, their actual identities with the U.S. government, with S.H.I.E.L.D. A team of superheroes led by Captain America find this as an affront to their freedom as individuals, their freedom to privacy. While Iron Man, Tony Stark, is given control of S.H.I.E.L.D. to sort of champion this act, and because Nick Fury has kind of gone missing and is sort of secretly supporting Captain America's anti-registration act side of things. It's really interesting because a lot of people drew on this, and they even address this in the comic, that people were drawing connections to either the Patriot Act or calls for registration of gun ownership. A lot of parallels that people were seeing to actual events in the real world. It was actually really interesting because people saw this as, and again, all of this was most of this took place during, I think all of it actually took place during the presidency of George Bush. So that's something you got to keep in mind, sort of the political context of the day. A lot of people saw this sort of thing, people who saw the Patriot Act allegories were like, oh, this is a commentary on George Bush and the U.S. government in the wake of 9/11. People who saw the gun registry parallels tend to be of the opposite stripe. They were conservatives who thought this was a commentary on the U.S. government sort of trying to infringe on their rights as gun owners. So you got people from both the liberal and conservative side kind of having their own view on it. It was really interesting because both sides kind of felt like their side was being championed, and I don't think Marvel really intended for that. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, of course they did. They were trying to have a commentary on this or that. Given what I've gathered from interviews done by Marvel creative staff, they just wanted to tell a good story, and they weren't interested in really championing any one political side of any issue. But it got people riled up. A lot of people thought that they overstepped their boundaries. They really tried to make Tony Stark seem amoral. A lot of people thought they were trying to make him into George Bush, kind of like an avatar for what people thought was wrong about George Bush.
Right.
And that's really funny. I'll get to it in a while. Why I think that was probably a bit misguided, but really it came down to really Tony Stark, Iron Man versus Captain America, and sort of the principles they represented. Captain America, very idealistic, right from World War II, 1930s, 1940s, kind of grew up with this idealized vision of what America is, and sees this as sort of an affront to that. Whereas Iron Man is very much a product of our time. He's more cynical. He's more practical. And he's saying, look, Cap, your ideals don't mean a whole hell of a lot if people are dying. And if this is going to stop people from dying, then it's what we have to do. So it was really a really interesting argument. And aside from their tendency to try to push Tony Stark, what some people say, pushing Tony Stark into, strawman George Bush territory, they really did treat both sides sort of with equal respect. There are more than a few times where in this comic series where they really, where Captain America and Iron Man really don't fight. They just sort of talk about the issues, and that seems kind of boring, but the conversations are actually really engaging. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they do on the big screen, because they already sort of planted the seeds of these two characters don't like each other in the Avengers. So
now, at any point during this Civil War, does Iron Man tell Captain America that he needs some solid dick from an Iron Man?
No, he doesn't.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, Jack's referencing one of those funny things about old comic books where they use outdated terminology that doesn't. It's like that Batman comic book where the Joker's going on about how Gotham City will know the rage of his boner. And it's one of those things where, like, apparently boner was intended to mean evil scheme back in the day. But yeah, and there
kind of does today to a large degree.
There is a comic series where Tony Stark's talking to Captain America. It's like from the 60s. And Tony Stark's like, "What you need is a solid dick from an Iron Man." And Captain America is like, "Maybe I do, Tony. Maybe I do."
Yeah, and in this particular instance, evidently solid dick meant a straight talking to, man-to-man level kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, solid dick from an... Anyways, sorry, go on.
Oh, well, that's pretty much it. Spider-Man, which we probably won't see because Sony has the rights to Spider-Man and they don't seem to know what the fuck they're doing. So we probably won't see Spider-Man involved, which is kind of a shame because there was actually a really interesting Spider-Man dynamic going on where at the time because Spider-Man is, he actually has a degree in science. He is a scientist. He studied science in university. He was actually working as a scientist for Stark Industries at the time. And Tony really sort of became a father figure to him. And he at first joined Tony's side, and he got a really cool Iron Spider getup. And then he switched sides to Captain America. So, there's actually some really cool stuff there, especially because when it comes to Marvel characters who interact, Iron Man and Spider-Man really don't tend to cross paths a lot, but they did during this little run. And so that was a cool dynamic. I kind of wish I would have been able to see that, because I do like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and seeing him and Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark would have been neat to see. But we probably won't see that. We also probably won't see the whole Reed Richards thing. Reed Richards of Fantastic Four supports Tony Stark. Is actually Tony's number 2 in that whole hierarchy of heroes who support the Superhero Registration Act, but we probably won't see him because he's owned by Fox. But we probably will see the Dark Thor thing where Tony creates an evil clone of Thor to support his side of things. And if we can just get Chris Hemsworth with a black goatee, I think that'd just be amazing.
Well, and why is it that, it's kind of this trope almost, that whenever you have an evil twin of a male character, they have to have a fucking goatee?
It's because of that Mirror Universe episode in Star Trek.
I guess.
Where that was the first instance where that happened, where to show evil Spock had a goatee, so ever since then... Evil.
Which, don't get me wrong, a goatee is definitely a douchebag maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I see one, I'm like, ugh, douche. But,
Yeah, no, it's like that Star Trek episode. But, so we'll probably see evil Thor. The implications, and I don't know if I should spoiler this, because there were people who were absolutely shocked when Bucky was revealed to be the Winter Soldier in the movie The Winter Soldier. And I was like, I've known that for years because comics. But, so I don't want to go in saying, Civil War's a couple of years old at this point, and it's been a while. So I don't want to go in assuming that everyone knows how this ends. So we don't tend to respect the whole spoiler thing very much. But I will say I'm gonna spoil the end of Civil War. So if you haven't read the comics, if you don't know how it ends, and you want to be surprised by the movie, feel free to skip the next couple of minutes. But basically what happens is Captain America is finally arrested by Iron Man, and because he has been leading a insurgency against the United States government, Captain America is set to go on trial, and as he's going into the courthouse, a sniper kills him. Captain America dies. And then Bucky becomes Captain America for a while.
Oh, no.
So,
which would make sense. I mean, this is supposed to be Chris Evans' last Marvel movie. He signed on for 3, or however many. 4, 5.
Yeah. Chris Evans has said after 5 he's done. And he's signed on for this one. If this turns out to be his last... Then, and again, I said last week, I think it's a real shame. I think they could get at least 2 movies out of the Civil War arc. But if they insist on doing it in one and they go with this ending, then... Now, of course, in the comic book, Steve Rogers comes back because it's comics.
Right.
But
so, how does it make you feel that Twilight and Hunger Games and these movies are getting multiple installments for one book, and yet this is only getting one movie?
Kind of pisses me off. Not gonna lie. Kind of pisses me off.
Let the hate flow through you. Your rage gives you strength.
I play a warrior in WoW, so that's true.
Yes. Login tips.
Indeed. The Shaw of login tips. But if they wanted to use it, I mean, they're not beholden to follow the comics exactly. So if they wanted to use that assassination of Captain America as a way to retire Steve Rogers in the movies because Chris Evans is done, then that's a good way to do it. But yeah, as you can tell from that description, Tony Stark's side more or less wins. And Marvel writers who worked on the project said in an interview that they always viewed Tony's side as the right side, and they knew that he was going to win eventually. So, to people who thought that they were maybe pushing Tony Stark into to be a proxy for George Bush, I don't think that's the case, because they were they see if the implication was always that Tony was in the right and that he was going to win at the end, and I'm going to take a wild leap of faith here and say that most comic book authors are probably of the liberal political persuasion, then I don't think they would have been intentionally turning him into a George Bush proxy if they saw him as the good guy in all of this. But, of course, it then kind of leads to a disparage situation where he did make an evil clone of Thor, so who the hell knows what was going on there. But I came down on Iron Man's side. Mostly, he is my favorite superhero. Been reading his book since I was around 10, so I was naturally drawn to his side of things. But it also made sense. I mean, they tried to say, it's like, Captain America's side was like, oh, this is about freedom of privacy, freedom of the individual. But, you know, at the end of the day, I sort of saw this as, no, Tony here is trying to keep a group of superpowered prima donnas under control. Like, your rights, I mean, there have been instances where superhero, supervillain fights in the Marvel Universe, and DC as well, really the whole genre, and with, like, the destruction of at least, like, half a city.
Cough, Man of Steel.
Yeah. So, to me, it's kind of like, someone needs to be held responsible at some point. And Tony seems to be the only one who gets that it's not about the rights of the superheroes, it's about the rights of the people whose property they regularly destroy. And so that was sort of where I came from with supporting Tony Stark. And I know you haven't read the series, but you know enough basically about the general motivations of the major players, Jack. So just, you know, top of your head, who would you tend to lean towards, Tony Stark or Steve Rogers?
Wow. You know, honestly, there's valid points to both. I almost, actually, and this is probably going to surprise you, find myself coming in on the captain's side a little bit more.
Hippie?
No, more like actually adhering to the stubborn, rugged American individualist spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually see, if we're going to play the let's draw analogies game here to modern political ideologies, then I actually find Captain America's argument to be the more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of, spoiler alert, how I weigh in real life for the most part when it comes to issues like that.
Well, I don't know, because Tony Stark seems to be like a pretty conservative type of guy.
Well, yeah. It's like I guess it really depends on the motivations and everything between, because you've reached this, and just to get political for 1 second, even though I hate to, but it's kind of like the context of this. Mm-hmm. You know, each side, each end of the spectrum now, which I'm convinced are the same goddamn thing these days between Democrats and Republicans.
No, you!
Exactly.
No, you!
They each want to register and legislate something. Mm-hmm. And they're both kind of hypocritical in how they do it. Mm-hmm. You know, the Democrats are all about it if it has to do with gun control or something like that. The Republicans are all about it if it comes to, you know, things that they consider to be of moral or national defense. So it's one of those things where they're both equally guilty of the same thing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the Republicans have always championed themselves as the heroes of individual rights, when really they're not. The Democrats like to do the same thing, and really they're not either, because they each want to take them away from you for their own different reasons. Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, I don't see it's such an odd. I don't think I do agree with you that I don't think that Marvel intended there to be any kind of ideological analogs inherently prevalent in this, because I don't see one.
They even addressed it in one of the later issues after it had been out for a couple of weeks and people had started to weigh in on it, where they have Tony, and he's kind of bitching about it, and he's like, I have people opposed to the Patriot Act coming out asking me to support them, and I have people opposed to gun registration who are coming out of the woodwork to ask me to support them. And his position is almost, all of you fuck off, this is my own thing here.
Right, and the thing is, it's like, okay. And part of my thinking on saying that I kind of lean a little bit, it's almost 50-50 split with me on this, but I would say 55-45 in favor of Captain. Simply because I don't think if this were real and the government said, okay, well, anyone with these powers has to register themselves, you're going to see a situation very similar that you see with guns and marijuana and things like that. That legislation does not make something effective. It's the means of enforcement behind it.
Well, in this case, it seemed pretty effective because they had a genius in power armor.
Well, true, but at the same time, the people with the powers that are going to be inclined to do evil, which I'm sure that would be a major spending point of this. Well, this way. Well,
it wasn't sold as supervillains because they actually recognized in it that supervillains are going to supervillain. That's just going to be something that they do. This was specifically targeted at heroes, and the point being with those kids who kind of blew up that school accidentally, kind of being that, look, right now there's no accountability, and superheroes need to be held accountable. Was really the big selling point.
I mean, I can get that because, if you own a gun, you're held accountable for that. So if your body is itself a weapon, then you should be held accountable for that as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's a very gray area on a lot of that. And, I do tend to more, just because of my real life thinkings, I do tend to more agree with Captain America, just in the sense of the less government intervention in anything, the fucking better we're all off being.
I kind of found Captain America to be a bit naive in that, because his whole thing seemed to be grounded on...
Well, do you know what else is naive, sir? Your face.
He just seemed so hung up on this isn't what I know to be right about America. And it's like, well, there's something to be said for sticking to your ideals, but at a certain point, well, once they become impractical, that needs to be a reality that is addressed and recognized.
Okay, so let's talk about what Captain America knows to be America. He's from the fucking 30s and 40s, for crying out loud. So, I mean, did
black people with separate water fountains?
Right. I mean, did he have a fit about that too? I mean, that's not exactly
maybe there was
an argument.
Maybe there was. Maybe that's why he was so welcoming to the Falcon in between Captain America 1 and 2. Maybe there was a sensitivity training course, and so he met the Falcon on his morning jog. He's like, okay, Steve, you went through the sensitivity training course. Here's your chance to make a black friend.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. But really, yeah, I'd like to see them address the fact that I want the scene where Captain America's smoking a bunch of red stripes, and someone's like, Captain, in the last 60 years, they've discovered that those actually cause lung cancer, and he'd be like, nah, that's just for Nancy's.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see him smoking and drinking whiskey at noon. And it's perfectly acceptable.
Well, I mean, though he can't get drunk, so I would imagine.
Yeah, that's it. He can't get drunk. That's another thing that Tony Stark is superior over.
Well, true. Yes.
Tony Stark. I also want to see the scene where Tony Stark gets shit faced, and just Captain America is just bummed out that he can't get shit faced. So he's like, you know what, Steve, you're a good guy. I respect the things that you do. I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, you do things, right? Yeah, no, I've seen you at least twice do things. Great.
His Captain America's superpowers have always kind of been vaguely defined. I mean, he's the pinnacle of human potential, which is whatever you want it to be, really.
The pinnacle of human potential, I don't know. An increasingly lowered bar.
Yeah. But that's sort of Marvel Civil War. I'm excited for it. It's actually probably the Marvel movie I'm now most looking forward to. God knows it's not Ant-Man. Age of Ultron, I think, is lacking in terms of a compelling villain. Although the trailer is set to be released next week, so we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not... I'll see it for sure, but I'm not going to walk into it expecting anything as awesome as the first one. And that will hopefully put this movie in a position to pleasantly surprise me, maybe.
Avengers 3, first I was super psyched about that because it looked to be shaping up to be the Infinity Gauntlet, but then it turns out that we might not even have the full cast of Avengers there, so that's a whole thing. So yeah, Marvel Civil War, that's the one thing that I'm really looking forward to at this point, from the Marvel end of things anyway. It also seems to be one of the ones the furthest away from actually hitting cinemas. So, just my luck. But here's hoping it turns out awesome, even if it is only one movie. I look forward to seeing Tony Stark belligerently and drunkenly punching his morality into people. We're going to move on to some World of Warcraft news. Last week we sort of talked about patch 6.0.2, and that had launched by the time we were recording, but we didn't actually get to play it until afterwards. So, Jack, it's been a week. We've both played patch 6.0.2. For the first time in like a year and a half, new content!
Such as it is. Okay, I'm of two minds on patch 6.0. One is the changes made to gameplay mechanics, which there were a lot of them. I mean, this is kind of the expansion where they go back. Cataclysm was an artistic revamp. Draenor is a mechanics revamp, and a very badly needed one at that.
And not just a minor one. They stripped everything down to the bone.
So, I'm of two minds. So starting with number one, the mechanics revamp. On the whole, I am very, very pleased. I think I have room on my action bar now. I have fewer buttons that I have to hit. With the minimal amount of diminished capability.
I've got a few level 90 ults, and I noticed that across the board, that it wasn't just my warrior. My paladin had freed up action bars.
My
level 87 Death Knight, who I recently revisited for the first time in years, he's not... of course, level 87 isn't 90, but he's got most of his abilities that he's going to have, and I noticed that a lot was cut out. And they seem to really have pared down each class to a few key abilities, and it really has made the action bar more manageable.
And I know, in your case, playing because your main is a warrior at the moment, and I know that when the changes were coming down the pipeline and you were hearing what they were, I do know that you weren't a big fan of a lot of them. You were kind of apprehensive.
I was very apprehensive because I saw everything that they were saying that they were taking out and changing. They took out Heroic Strike, which is a huge DPS. And this is for Fury Warriors. Heroic Strike's still in there for arms, I think. But yeah, I play Fury Warrior. They took out Cleave. They took out Heroic Strike. They took away my banners that generated rage.
They took your gerb.
They kept my battle shouts, but they took the rage regen abilities off of them,
which had the ironic effect of helping you generate personal rage.
Indeed, but so I was thinking they took away a lot, and they took away my Berserker stance, which had huge rage regen. So I was like, they're taking away all my abilities to create rage, which is the primary in-game attribute that I'm able to use my abilities off of. They took away ability to generate rage, and they took away two of my most powerful weapons. They also took my two most powerful attacks. They also took out Colossus Smash, which allowed me to completely render an enemy's armor useless for a couple seconds to get great DPS in there too, because the strikes just bypass their armor stats. So I was like, what the hell? Like, none of this is going to work. Like, this seems terrible. I log in for 6.0.2, see my revamped abilities list, kind of rearrange everything into an order that I think I can get to work.
3 hours later.
But you know what? After playing it, I never noticed that my rage was going down. You said, I don't have my recount installed at the moment, but you said I was actually at the top of the DPS charts on a Siege of Orgrimmar run.
Yeah, you were.
So my DPS is still there. I never found myself running low on rage in combat, which was my big fear, seeing these changes. So it's one of those cases where it's like, maybe you don't bitch about changes until you've played them. Maybe you just trust.
No.
Maybe you trust that Blizzard knows what they're doing.
No. Sheeple. No. We know that every developer of Blizzard is a faggot. They have to be, because they otherwise, and we have to let them know this. We have to let them know this at every opportunity, because if we don't, then the terrorists win.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cases where it's like I saw all this and I was apprehensive, but then I started playing it and I was like, you know what? Yeah, they took a lot of stuff out, but I think a lot of people need to realize that when they change something so radically, they're not just cutting abilities out. They're not just doing that. They're completely reworking how the class works so that you're not going to lose it. They're changing the way the class works, but they're not taking anything away that they don't give back in another form somehow.
I'll say one thing with regards to my main class and spec, Retribution Paladin. Mm-hmm. At some point, they gave him crack cocaine.
Oh?
It just plays so much faster now. Like, I mean, you still have the downtimes here and there where you're sitting there.
They took out Inquisition, which I know you're a big fan of.
Yeah, they took out Inquisition, which is great. But like, just playing it, like for a few seconds when, haste benefits trigger and all this other shit, for a few seconds, and it happens fairly often during an extended fight, I almost feel like I don't have enough room to hit everything. And that's kind of cool. Like, for those few seconds, it feels like it's just gone crazy. Mm-hmm. And, he's just bam, 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 just as fast as I can hit the buttons, he's attacking. Mm-hmm. And that's just fucking great. I do like it. DPS-wise, I think I might be a little bit weaker than I was before. I'm still respectable. Mm-hmm. I
bet you wish you had Inquisition.
Fuck off. No, I don't. No, I don't. But even after the 20% buff that they gave us recently, I still feel it's a little bit weak. Mm-hmm. But not enough for me to be like, oh my god. And that could be... The thing is, though, at that point, taking into account that we're still all level 90, and I'm sure that when they balanced everything, that they most likely balance it around level 100, because they don't really care about balancing during leveling content, because it's just too difficult.
And once Draenor launches, level 90 won't be the cap anymore, and that'll just be leveling.
Right. So everything right now is kind of balanced with level 100 in mind. Mm-hmm. So it may not be, I may feel a bit gimped now a little bit, but that may not be the case come level 100. So I'm not really terribly arsed about it.
Now, but I was, this was just really, like I said, people stop freaking out.
No.
Actually play your class before you decide if it's ruined forever.
No.
And you know what? I actually saw this. Like, MMO Champion, they repost tweets that members of Blizzard's developmental staff have made in response to questions on Twitter.
Yeah.
And someone, when talking about the changes to Warriors, was like, "You've ruined Warriors forever." And the response was, "Maybe you should play it first."
No.
And I'm like, well, that actually mirrors me. I was apprehensive. I played it. And you know what? It works. It's fine.
No, we must transmit the rage immediately.
Don't wait to actually play the game before deciding if it's broken.
No, because that's the way of the sheeple, sir. That's the way of the sheeple, the mindless, sycophantic fanboys. We must remain strong and show our passion by verbally berating the people that give us the game we love at every turn.
And throwing gay slurs at them.
Yes, every last one of them.
Oh man! So we covered mechanics, at least as they pertain to warriors and paladins. Kind of both plate-wearing melee classes. Not very much diversity there, so we apologize on that front. But what can you do? In terms of the new questing experience, because they allowed us to deal with the Iron Horde threat from Draenor. We deal with them coming through the Dark Portal, and we obviously don't get to go to Draenor to go on the offensive, but we do get to do some questing in relation to beating the Iron Horde back a bit. So what did you think of that?
Blah. Frankly, I thought it sucked.
See, no, maybe this is just new content, but I liked it, honestly. I mean, the quests all were very, they're basically standard. Go kill some Iron Horde guys. Go do this.
That's my problem with it.
But okay, nothing seemed overly grindy. Like, I wasn't fishing around for Iron Horde grunt eyeballs or anything.
Well, no, we weren't. And I will say, they're not grindy, but they are boring as fuck. Mm-hmm. There's other. Okay, here's my thing. Yes, they are standard quests, and that's exactly my problem with them. Standard quests are for standard questing. This is supposed to be something. The pre-expansion event is supposed to be something that feels epic and awesome, and it's to get you pumped and set the tone for what's coming. And this didn't really do any of that for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, there were aspects I liked, which mostly had to do with the atmosphere in the area, the ships offshore, which aren't firing, unfortunately. I would have loved to have had the ships, firing onto the shore. Mm-hmm. And you see, you're walking around amidst explosions and all this other shit. The quest just felt like your standard kill X number of this, and because that's what they were.
So when you say that you weren't pumped, when you did that quest where you look through the telescope,
that was the one good moment of the entire chain.
When you see the Iron Horde pour out of the Dark Portal,
that was the one good moment of the entire chain. But it was one moment.
I don't know. I kind of liked palling around with Murad and hearing his "never again." Like, yes.
They should have had it go up to the point, and this is what I would have done. I think if they'd done this, it would have been a lot better. Mm-hmm. Have some kind of landing or construction of Alliance or Horde if you're on that side, siege weaponry, that kind of thing. Have a preparation, and then you do kind of a phase thing where you see an Alliance army gathering at the portal opposite the Iron Horde, and then you have one final mission. It probably would have been like a vehicle mission or something like that, where you charge the portal. You don't go through it; it would stop up to that point, of course, but you would get up to that point. There'd be a huge battle at the portal at that point, which would that juncture effectively cut off the Iron Horde's advance and set the stage for the counteroffensive into Draenor itself. And that would have felt a lot more epic than what we got.
The thing I wanted to see wasn't so much a naval invasion, because the Iron Horde's coming through in the Blasted Lands. And that's adjacent to the Kingdom of Stormwind. In fact, depending on how you want to look at the borders, the Blasted Lands may actually be within Stormwind's borders. But What I wanted to see columns of Alliance soldiers marching into the Blasted Lands, I guess, is what I wanted to see.
That would have been cool, too. That would have been great. And that would have been awesome if they'd done that. Or, have the Iron Horde actually invade. Of course, I guess they couldn't have them invade Stormwind because then they couldn't have had them invade Orgrimmar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because Orgrimmar is way too far away. So I guess maybe that's why they didn't do that. But yeah, show, for the Alliance, columns of soldiers marching to the Blasted Lands. For the Horde, show, because there were 2 Horde ships offshore, show, columns of Horde soldiers, marching off the ships.
Yeah.
Give that feeling of this large epic battle gathering, and then give you something that to participate in that. And then that's the finale of the quest chain, and then you're all set, and you have the feeling of, oh my God, before you go back into Draenor. As it was, it just felt like at the end when you're done with it, Murad almost just basically says, oh, well, that's about all we can do for right now, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just beginning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. It just felt really lackluster to me, really boring. And on another side, now, I mean, you've got a Horde tune that's level 90 that you've played. You've got 2 Horde tunes that you've played.
Yes, I've done both of them, yes.
And it's literal copy and paste with names changed.
It's copy and paste of names changed, yes.
Yeah, and that's pretty fucking lazy to do.
I don't know whose side they wrote it for. I mean, honestly, it seems like they made the quest chain as it sounds like they made both of mine. Like, okay, there before the Iron Horde invades the Blasted Lands, there are 2 bases. There is Rockard, which is the Horde base, and then there's Netherguard Keep, which is the Alliance base. And both are destroyed. Netherguard Keep is overrun by the Iron Horde, and then the Horde based in Rockard actually betray the Horde and join the Iron Horde. That's the story there. So both are essentially destroyed. On both the Alliance and the Horde, you have to go in and collect mementos from Netherguard Keep. And that seems like a quest that was written from the Alliance point of view, that they then shoehorned into the Horde point of view, because there's no reason for the Horde to want to get mementos from Netherguard Keep.
Yeah, and I also have an issue with the Horde getting to go plant a flag in Netherguard.
Yeah, and there's also that as well. But then there's a quest where on both sides where you go and poison the ogres in Rockard. And Rockard is the Horde base, so that whole poisoning the ogres thing sounds like it was written from the Horde point of view. And instead of making 2 unique quest lines where each side did their own thing, they just had each side do the other side's story too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is literally copy and paste of names change, and instead of Murad, you follow Thrall around. And Thrall was a dick, by the way, on my Blood Elf Paladin. Because there's this, the final thing on both ends, because again, it's all copy and paste, is you have to kill the Iron Horde commander in Rockard. Where you go kill him, and he's standing there, but he's got some Iron Horde flunky standing beside him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because, like, the objective, the main boss guy, he's the objective of the quest, so I focus all my attacks on him. And then Thrall and Throd or Murad, depending on what side you're playing, help you in that battle. So I charge with my Blood Elf Paladin, Thrall shows up, and he's helping me. Kill the guy, and then Thrall is like, good work, hero, and runs off as the other Iron Horde flunky is still wailing on me. I'm like, you fucking asshole!
Of course.
Thrall, you jackass! Fuck you. This guy is, like, bludgeoning me with, like, a mace, and Thrall's like, oh, well, I'm done here, bye!
Yeah. Oh, have fun with that there, guy. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just don't. I think it's kind of a shitty. I mean, it's better than what. I guess it's better than what we got with Pandaria, which was just like the Theramore scenario.
See, I'm going to actually argue that that was better, and not from a story perspective. Although I will say that seeing, because that was the first scenario. Scenarios were introduced in Pandaria, so that was the first experience we got with a scenario. So that was kind of a new experience. We may bitch about Theramore being blown up, but at the same time, it did have a sense of gravity to it.
Right.
And I'll say this, it provided us with, we got that Theramore tabard for completing it. And, you might say, oh, it's just a tabard. My point being that they rewarded you for playing the pre-expansion event. Here, we were so eager, we completed that quest right after we recorded our last episode of Bags.
Yeah.
And we were so eager to complete the Iron Heart stuff that we actually completed it before they fixed the quest rewards into it.
Yeah. Which I think we got like a pet or something.
We got the Iron Star pet at the end of it, yeah. But
I haven't even bothered to have my character learn because I really don't give a shit about pets.
But we don't have but we didn't get the I've played this a couple times on a couple of my Alliance 90s and on both my Horde 90s, and I can say that you're supposed to get a trinket, a ring, a neck piece, and a cloak out of it by the end.
Wow.
And we didn't get any of that because we just...
And it's like, well, why the fuck wasn't that in there when it launched?
Well, when they added that stuff in, they called it a hot fix. So
right.
It just seems like it was an oversight. That's all it seems like. Like they obviously didn't plan on it. It's just like they launched it and it was like, oh shit, we didn't put the quest rewards in.
Yeah, so now on our main tunes, we don't have the shit we're supposed to have, and Blizzard's like, oh, we'll get it fixed. Well, it's a week later, we're still fucking waiting.
Still waiting for my goddamn trinket. I mean, I've got the legendary cloak, so I'm not all that broken up about the cloak thing, but...
Yeah, the cloak. Let's talk about that.
So, yeah, let's talk about... Oh, okay, we'll get back to the cloak, but there's one more thing I wanted to talk about 6.0.
Sure.
One thing. They did add the first 3 bosses. Okay, so they revamped Blackrock. It's Blackwing Lair.
Upper Blackrock Spire.
There's so many fucking Blackrock dungeons and raids. I can't shoot it. But Upper Blackrock Spire, which was a classic raid that mostly involved going in to deal with Rend Blackhand, has been revamped. Obviously, Rend Blackhand was part of the vanilla WoW storyline, so that's happened. They revamped it now because the Iron Horde has taken up hold there. And I think it's a 5-boss dungeon, but they have redone it. And so they've redone it for the new Iron Horde story. Bosses, mobs have all been updated. And the first 3 were released in a special level 90 version. The main version will be level 100. This is level 90 for the pre-expansion event. What did you think? Because I know you've been rather critical of how of the revamps they've done to classic dungeons. So what did you think of this one?
I liked it actually. It was pretty cool. It definitely has a different feel than the Pandaria dungeons. It is a little bit difficult. Not terribly, but it's you can definitely tell a difference. But I did like it. It's a good revamp. It looks really cool. Yeah, I liked it.
From what we see, a lot of them are copy and paste jobs from the other bosses, but like the Iron Horde commander you kill at the end is basically that he basically fights just like Rend Blackhand did in the original. He comes out on like a flying mount, and then you have to kill that, and then you have to kill him. But at the same time, yeah, no, I agree. It was revamped in a way that everything made sense, everything seemed consistent with the story, and the fights were difficult, but fun in a way. They didn't seem head-bashingly difficult. We went in with a kind of a bad group. We got in with a bad group at first, and that definitely colored our experiences. But once we got in with a decent group that knew what they were doing, it was actually a pretty fun time. So, and even though we didn't get our quest rewards for the Iron Horde quests, we still got some gear from Upper Blackrock Spire. You got a chess piece.
Yeah.
So, But yes, that's Upper Blackrock Spire. Let's talk about the legendary cloak quest. For those who don't know, I'll just lay some groundwork. The big antagonist for the Cataclysm expansion was a dragon named Deathwing. He was the leader of the Black Dragonflight, most of which were corrupted by the old gods. He had a son named Wrathion. He actually had a couple sons. Wrathion was the youngest. Wrathion is the only black dragon actually not corrupted by the old gods. So, all the other black dragons died.
He's instead corrupted by stupid.
And Wrathion was left alive, and so he's doing his own thing. And in Mists of Pandaria, he sends you on a quest, essentially throughout the expansion, throughout Pandaria. You go to the different parts of Pandaria, you do his quests, and the end result is he gives you a legendary cloak that has uber stats and is awesome. Jack is trying to complete it before they take it out in Draenor. And Jack, why don't you share your opinions on what you think about the legendary cloak quest chain?
First off, Wrathion can fuck off.
He is a bitch.
At least his dad had goals and was clear about them.
He wanted to burn the world in a fiery cataclysm.
Right, and while I might have disagreed with that somewhat, I at least respected him for having direction in his life. Now, Wrathion, he's just rambles on and on and on.
They're trying to present him as this Machiavellian schemer, but he really just comes off as pretentious who likes to hear himself talk.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what he is. He's a pretentious little douche canoe who likes to prattle on and on endlessly. Now, this quest chain, it's busy work in its literal sense. I mean, they designed it to take a fucking expansion almost to finish. And they didn't do it in any meaningful way. They send you back into this fucking Throne of Thunder raid over and over and over again, which is the worst goddamn raid. I actually have concluded now that it is worse than Eye of Eternity with Malygos. It is worse because Malygos is one fucking fight.
Yeah, but it was a pretty fucking annoying fight where you had to go off the platforms.
It was very annoying, but that was one phase of one fight that lasted a few minutes, and it wasn't integral raid progression content. It was like a side raid at the time. It was something that no one had to go do, really. It was just there.
Well, they're one of the weekly things. Like, you gotta go kill Malygos this week.
Well, yeah.
But you didn't have to do those.
Right. But this is an entire progression tier content, an entire raid tier that just blows ass. Fucking trolls. God damn it, Blizzard. I'm tired of the fucking trolls and the fucking raids. Shut the fuck up, Mon. How about that?
Yeah, the trolls are really fucking old, and I'm over them entirely.
So you go and you're supposed to get these secrets of the Empire. And this is actually after I've gone through these raids before and gathered a bunch of shit.
You're going to have to do it one more time after these, just so you know.
Fucking shit.
Yeah. Titanic Runestones, I think, is next.
Oh, dear. Yeah, no fucking way I'm going to finish that quest for the expansion launch.
But basically, what Jack's getting at is that they send you in. Wrathion's like, you got to get me 20 of these
Secrets of the Empire, yeah.
Secrets of the Empire. So you go in, and first of all, I don't even think there's 20 bosses in the raid. I'm trying to think.
No, there's not. I think there's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12 maybe? 12, 14 bosses?
Yeah, 12 I believe, yeah.
And so you go in, and you gotta, and first of all, once you the way that WoW works is once you do a raid or even a wing of a raid in a week, it's locked, and you can still go in there and do it, but you won't get any loot or rewards from the bosses. So to get these 20 secrets of the Empire, so to get a secret of the Empire, basically, you can only run the raid once. Once you do that, the possibility of them dropping disappears for the week. And on top of that, it's not even a guaranteed drop. So you've got to run the same content over and over again. And like, I can understand the idea behind that quest was, oh, well, we want people to see the raid content. Well, okay, then how about you make them guaranteed drops that you only have to run once?
Or at least better than what I would estimate to be about a 25% drop rate. I started out, I did the entire raid of Throne of Thunder last night in the first wing of Siege of Orgrimmar over the course of about 4 hours. And I started it with 9 Secrets of the Empire. I ended out with 15. And that's after downing 12, 13, 14, 15 bosses.
Yeah.
So that's about a 25% drop rate, maybe a little bit higher.
It's absolutely bullshit.
Yeah, and though there were people in that raid that were saying, this was in the last wing of Throne of Thunder, and they said that they downed every boss in the entire raid and hadn't gotten one yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a complete crapshoot, and it's just... And just to kind of sum it up here, the whole thing is this quest line is the worst I've ever fucking seen. It takes you to the worst fucking piece of the Pandarian content, which on the whole is a great expansion. I'm not knocking it, but this content is shite.
The Isle of Thunder content.
Yeah, the Isle of Thunder. You can't take 2 steps without getting aggravated by something, much like real life in that regard sometimes. But, you go through all this shit. This island is ass. It just looks horrible. I don't like the aesthetic of it.
Mm-hmm. It's swampy.
Yeah, the Throne of Thunder raid is just shit that they actually had the balls to compare to Ulduar.
Well, like I said, conceptually I see, because you're working your way through a giant palace, which is kind of what Ulduar was.
Yeah, but like in Ulduar, when you fought a boss, it felt epic and awesome, not like an annoying little pain in your ass. And, case in point, a good one, the turtle boss.
I don't even know
Tordos.
what the mechanic is on that. I just whack the turtle.
And he's just there, and it's like, okay, well, this is the thing. All the bosses are either frustrating or they're just a thing that you go through.
There's that one in the sewer where it's like some giant, 3-headed thing, and you have, I don't even know what the mechanic is on that. I don't know what the mechanic is in half of those raids, because it's so poorly designed. It's like, you know what? I don't get it. I'm just going to whack things with my swords.
Yeah, but, so it drags you through the shit so much. And, for the end of the expansion, I get they did the Gaze of the Prince or whatever. I get that they did that. Well, it should still be going, for one thing.
Well, the Gaze of the Prince didn't really help, because it upped it to, maybe a 50% drop rate at best. Right,
yeah, and even when I was doing it while that was up, I still wasn't getting seemingly any higher amounts of them, really. Mm-hmm. So, at the very least, the Gaze of the Prince should have made it a guaranteed drop. And now, at this point, they should hotfix and up the drop rates on these things to at least 50%, at least. If not 75% or a guaranteed drop. And, a cloak should not be legendary, for one thing. It just seems really pathetic to me. Mm-hmm. A legendary should be just that. It should be like some iconic weapon or something. Mm-hmm. Like the Warglaives of Azeroth that Illidan had and things like that.
Or the
Shadowmourne.
The Shadowmourne axe from Lich King, yeah.
Yeah. And that quest chain felt a lot better. It was grindy, but it felt a lot better than this did. And I never got to complete that one, of course. But it still felt better than this does. This just feels like fucking grindy-ass busy work that you would have expected from pre-Cataclysm questing. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much my thoughts on it. And I'm not really looking for... They say that they've learned their lesson with this and that the quest for the Legendary Ring...
The thing about Legendary Ring is, at least in the Legendary Cloak, you can see it. You won't even see the Legendary Ring.
No, they said it's going to have a visual effect.
The Cloak has a visual effect, too, but I'm just saying that Like, it's not something that you'll be able to put on your character and be like, oh, that looks badass.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And there's that, too. So they said that they're going to make the quest chain for the Legendary Ring to be less grindy or whatever. I'll believe it when I see it, because now you're actually going to start it while you're still leveling. Mm-hmm. It'll be at like the late 90s where you start the quest and, continue through 100. So we'll see where it ends on that. But I think that a Legendary Ring is a retarded idea, too. And before anyone says, "Oh, Lord of the Rings," shut the hell up. This is in a game. This is completely different. And yeah, it's just not.
Yeah, I'm hoping they take out the grindy dungeon type things, because that's bullcrap. Making you go into the same raid over and over and over and over again. With their ridiculous amount of objects you need to collect, like around 20, and then the low drop rates, no. Again, if the desire was to get people to see the raid content and then just be like, get these 5, and then have it drop off like 5 specific bosses. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But on that note, though, I think it's about time that we wrapped the show up. I think we've exhausted how much we can bitch about Wrathion, at least for one show. I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about him, because he does show up in Draenor. Oh, yeah.
We're not done being aggravated with him, I don't think.
But this has been episode 37. You can catch us on Stitcher, Spreaker, on iTunes, on YouTube, TFW 2005, forums.taiju.org, and sportslogos.net. Send us an email at basically geekshow@gmail.com, and send us. You can catch us on Twitter at @geekshow. I think that's all of our platforms. Also the basically sportshow.com. Can't forget the mothership. Can't forget the mothership there. So for episode 37, for Jack, this is Mike signing off.
Good night, everybody.